Hi, I'm Brian Carpenter. I'm the Curator of Native American Materials at the American Philosophical Society Library, and I'm here at ATALM 2018 at Mystic Lake, and I'll be giving some presentations later in the conference, talking in more detail about some of what I'll be showing today. But what I'd like to talk about quickly here is basic questions. You've heard about the APS and that it has collections, and you would like to find if there's stuff from your community in your language and so forth. So I'm going to give you a little walkthrough of just how to start looking for materials and how to request them. Okay, so we have, like a lot of archives, we've got a lot of different resources, a lot of different tools for getting into collections. And archives are really good at making really huge lists of lots of information, but it can be really hard to, in those lists, to zero in on the thing that you're looking for. So I'm going to give you some tips and some guides that we have to get you started on how to look for that. And one thing to say through all of this is, if there's any questions you have along the way, we welcome, just send me an email, send us an email. We're glad to help people with any steps of these process. There are no stupid questions. Archives are very challenging to work with, but very rewarding, and so we're glad to work together with you, because you also might have knowledge about the collections that we don't know, because if it's from your community, you'll have expertise about it that we don't know. So we welcome learning from you about how to represent these materials in a better way. So let's get started. The main way we suggest people to look for materials relating to indigenous cultures, languages, and histories is something we call the Indigenous Subject Guide. This is a reference resource that gives kind of a curated take, a focused take on that part of the collections at the APS library. So there are some general useful terms that I want to mention real quick, just because I'll refer to them a lot, and they're not always clear what they mean. So I'll talk about collections. A collection is just a set of archival material, usually unique material, that's collected together by a particular individual or organization. So a collection is kind of the unit of stuff that you'll find in an archive, just as you might look at a library. When you search for something in a library catalog, you'll get a list of records of books. In our archival catalog, what you'll get is a list of finding aids for a particular collection. So the finding aid is just a structured guide to a particular collection. So it might be the papers of a particular individual or a particular organization. Sometimes those can get really big and have a lot of different things in them. Sometimes they can be very small. It can be just a set of tapes, a photograph album, something like that. So to find our subject guide, the best place to start is to go to the website for our Center for Native American and Indigenous Research. Another way you can find it is to go just to the American Philosophical Society webpage, go to the library menu, and you'll see the center as one of the options. One of the first things when you scroll down on that page, it'll say Access to Collections, and there will be a link that says Indigenous Subject Guide. It'll be right there. When you come up to the guide, it has a bunch of different options for searching in the collection. There's actually a bunch, there's 3. And I'm going to give you a walkthrough quickly of a couple of them, but also show you how you can kind of finish the process and actually request a particular thing. So what we like to talk about, show first is the option we call Browse. And so in the guide, what you have are a series, are different entries that sort of describe a set of material in a particular collection. So often when people come to us with a reference question, they say, I'd like to see everything that's from my community or in my language. So the 2 options we give to start out are you can browse by culture or language. And if you click on that, you'll then get a list of all the different names of indigenous cultures or peoples. If you use the culture, browse by culture, or if you use browse by language, it'll list everything, every entry, every language for which there is an entry in the catalog. On the slides here, the first example, we just kind of see a list of, you just get an alphabetical list of all the cultures. So I'm just choosing one from the top page here, Alabama. At the top, you'll get a title that just says Alabama Materials in the James Crawford Recordings Collection. and then it'll tell you what the main culture is here, and we see that Alabama is highlighted. There's also a category, a field that says alternate forms. So we have the spelling Alabamu with a U at the end. This is for the case of, as everyone knows, there's lots of alternate spellings of culture and language names, as well as old kind of pejorative names. Different people, depending where they come from, what generation they are, and so forth, their level of knowledge, might type any number of terms. So this is just to ensure if someone types in one of those other versions, they're going to find the same thing. We also have information on what language the material is in, not just what it's about, the dates, the range of years that the material was created. We have a field called contributors. This is anyone who was involved in some fashion in the creation of the materials described. So this certainly includes people like the researcher who may have recorded materials, but also, very importantly, it includes the names of the native speakers, singers, consultants, people whose knowledge is the basis of the material in the first place. So if you're looking for a particular, say, relative or prominent figure in the community, this is where their names would appear. There's a lot of names in the materials that may not show up, but these are ones we've been able to tell for sure are in these collections. There's also some general information about the subjects, very broadly, whether it's a sound, audio, an image, or text, and a little information about the extent. The most important thing I want to point out is a field that's called description. This just tells you, gives you a little overview about what is being described in the entry, because at the bottom of the entry you get a link to the finding aid for that collection. Sometimes the finding aid is a really huge list, and it's hard to know where the thing you're looking for would be in that list. So the description gives you a little kind of orientation as to where to look for the particular thing that's being mentioned. In this example, the description says that in this, the Alabama materials in the James Crawford recordings consist of numerous songs and stories located in Series 1, Alabama. So a series is like a section within a finding aid. You click on the link, you go to the online finding aid. On the left-hand side, there's a menu you can scroll down in, and this shows a lot of the different sections of the finding aid. If it's a really longer finding aid, it will have multiple sections. So the entry we were just looking at said to look in Series 1. On the side, you see we'll have an arrow pointing to where that Series 1 is. And then you click on that, and it will take you to the part in the list where that section begins. And then we have information on some of the particular items in that section. And then you can scroll through there to see what particular items you're interested in. I want to go back to another example from the Alabama list. This is an example of something that's a more diverse range of materials. Sometimes what's in a collection is there's just a couple things. So the guide entry will say, there are these two things, look for this and this. Sometimes it's a more broader range, it's a bunch of different things. So the description is just a short paragraph. It may not say list everything, but it will say, in this section look for this kind of thing, in this section look for this kind of thing. And it may highlight a few different things that are especially prominent. So this is an example of Alabama materials that are in the Mary Haas papers, Mary Haas was a linguist. And so it describes, again, a lot of different aspects. You'll see in this one, there's, although it's Alabama materials in the culture field, there are a lot of other cultures listed, like Chickasaw, Choctaw, and so forth. What this is indicating is sometimes you'll have a particular item that's primarily about one language or culture, but there may be some incidental information about, say, neighboring peoples or related languages. So what that's indicating is just that there's some other information about some other related peoples in there. Likewise for the language information. So this description that says there's a variety of different things. You can read that at your leisure. It says some stuff in Series 2, sub-series called Multiple Languages. So we're going to go try to find that here. So if we click on the link that says go to collections, we'll get there. And then we go to the left-hand side and we see the different lists of series. And it says the description said look in Series 2 and a subsection called multiple languages. So we see Series 2, research files, and then there's a bunch of different languages listed. We go down to where it says multiple languages, click on that, and then we get that'll take us to that section. Now in this case, you then have to kind of scroll through a bunch of different items that are in that section to try to find the ones that are Alabama related. So you're welcome to browse. This is a good case too, where you can also browse through things that may be nearby, that might be related, to kind of explore, the way you might at like a library, like look at things that are nearby each other on the shelf that may not be what you're looking for. Now, this is a good moment to give a little quick tip. In a finding aid like this, the Mary Haas Papers is a really huge collection. If you printed out the finding aid, it'd be probably 300 or 400 pages. So can be hard to it can be very time consuming to scroll through everything. So I like to tell people about something that's on your computer that you may not know about. If you have a PC, if you hit Control F when you're in the web page, or if you're on a Mac, if you hit Command F, this will bring up a little box, and then you can type in the word you want to find. So in this case, I brought that up, and you type in Alabama, and it shows that there are 24 places in the finding aid where that word appears. Then you can click on the arrow to find all those spots where those occur. So that's a good way to get through a big finding aid, to try to zero in on certain things. And you can type in anything there, name of a culture, a language, a person's name, place. It's dependent on whether that name is written down in the description. So it may not mean that those are all the things in the collection that relate to that word, but it's all the places where it's written down, at least. So we're looking at this notebook, we want to say that you think, okay, that's something I would like to get a copy of. So then in the finding aid on the side, there's a link that says request file for reading room access. That's if you're physically coming to the library and you want to look at it there in the reading room. You're very welcome to come to Philadelphia anytime, and you can email me information on that. Here we're going to talk about how to request stuff digitally. So if you click on request a copy of this file, that will then take you to a page called EON. So EON is our request system. It's an online system where you can set up a registration account, and that way you can, when you place a request, I know who it's going to, and then when it is ready to go, you'll get information on how to download it through that account. So if you pull that up, you click where it says first-time users, and then you'll get a quick form to fill out. After you've done that, then when you've clicked on that request link, it will automatically fill in the information about that item. You just go to the bottom where it says submit request, and then that will put it in, and it'll build up a list of the things that you're requesting. So for a manuscript material, what we do is we copy it to PDF, and then you get a downloadable copy of a PDF. If it's an image, we would send it as a TIFF or a JPEG. If you're wondering about a particular format you would like, we're glad to work with you on what fits your needs. The majority of the audio is digitized. If you see something that isn't, we can probably digitize it also. So that's how you get to the stage of actually placing a request. Let's talk quickly about some of the other two options here for the guide. The other one is a search. This is where you can just do a keyword search. I recommend using this if you're looking for a particular person's name or the name of the community. If you're searching for a language or the name of your culture or people, I would say use the browse category. But if you don't find something in the browse category, if you type in another version of that name in the search category, that might bring it up. The other thing that people really are interested in is the map. We call this the Explorer option. So this is a visual representation of places where materials in the APS come from. So an important thing to say about the map is it's obviously really interesting. People like using it, but not everything that is in the guide is in the map. There are certain things that can't be represented on the map because there's no information about where it specifically comes from, or it might be something like a document about a language family. It's not from a particular place. And so these are all the materials where it's on the item itself, like say a notebook says recorded in such and such a place. Then we put a dot on the map where that material comes from. So these are all the things where we have apparent, clear information that it's from a specific spot. So you can zoom in on different places and to see where the dots are. You also have a menu on the right-hand side where it kind of lists just all the names of the places. So you can do it, you can approach this two ways. You can zoom into a particular place you're looking at. Here we're looking at Alaska, just to pick an example, and you can see a lot of different places. So you can zoom in and click on a particular dot, and it'll pull up links to entries in the guide that are associated with that place. If you're trying to look for a place but you're not sure where it is, you can also do that Control F thing I mentioned earlier, and it'll show you in the list where that is and bring up those that information. Then you can click on any of these. That'll take you to those guide entries, just like we were just looking at, and then you can go to that particular collection and request the thing you're interested in. One thing I want to note is people ask, what to do next. The first thing to say is when you request materials, send me an email to let me know you've requested something. If this request is going to support like a community-based initiative, a language program, cultural center, any sort of community-based work, like I said earlier, we can provide these materials digitally for free. But in order to do that, I need to know that a particular request is coming from that context. So just send me an email, say, hey, I've placed some requests. That way they will get routed to me and they can be handled in the appropriate way and we can get it to you. If you find materials, send me an email. If you don't find something, please also send me an email because this is another very important thing to know about the guide. Not everything is in the guide. The vast majority of the collections are in there, but some things may not show up as much in there. For example, photographs, we often don't know where the photographs are from. They're often not well described. Correspondence, like discussions among people about particular topics, we often don't have information about what particular things they relate to. And another thing is there's a lot of new collections that come into the APS all the time. So anything that has recently arrived that could be from any time period or any place that we haven't cataloged yet won't show up in the guide. So it's possible if you're looking for something that there could be something from your community or relating to your language that is not showing up in the guide yet. But if you tell me what you're working on, what you're looking for, I can give you suggestions, I can give you any information on stuff that isn't showing up, or suggestions on other stuff related to what you've already found. So we're very glad to work with you on that. And for another thing to say is for audio materials, the audio materials you can access online with a login and password. You just send me an email, say this is the collection I'd like to access. You can then listen to them online and download MP3 copies. If you're requesting them for, say, a cultural center or archive where you'd like to have them as part of the archive, let me know, because then I can get it to you in a form where I can send it to you as like a data CD or a thumb drive where you have all the file names in a nice order, where you can just kind of take it and input it into your local setting. Also, if you're requesting any kind of material, manuscripts, photographs, or audio for someone, an elder, a relative, who doesn't really like using computers, we can also send physical copies of things. That's something that people are interested in from time to time, and we're glad to do that. Just let us know, and we can figure that out. So if there's anything in this in the process of looking for materials where you're wondering what to do next, you can send me an email in the information provided here. You can also just go to the main library page at the APS, which will be right at the top, one of the tabs. And there it has a form where you can send in a question. You're also free to give us a phone call. Phone number is 215-440-3400, and let them know what your question's about, and it'll get probably routed to me, and I'm glad to help that way as well. And many of my other colleagues as well can help you with questions that come up about any part of the process. So myself and all of the other people at the APS library, we're here to help you with your research. please feel free, do not hesitate to get in touch with us. We're very eager to learn how we can make ourselves useful to what you're doing, and we look forward to being in touch. And if you're ever in Philadelphia, let us know. We'd be glad to welcome you there and help you in person as well.